Can we actually rebuild trust after we've been betrayed? Can we heal after being hurt? And is it possible to love again after betrayal? Welcome to Let's Talk Relationship here with myself, Stefania Pulio, and I am from the Gentleman's Square, and I'm a men's love and relationship consultant and a certified hypnotherapist. And I actually work with men who want to step into their full potential and build healthy, rock solid relationships without all the drama. And in today's video, in today's show, I'm going to be talking about how to rebuild trust after betrayal. Now, is it possible? Is it actually possible to do that? And today, I am so excited to be here and to be here with you all and be on this show. And I'm actually coming on live and I'm just seeing whether I'm actually being screened live. Okay, yes, I am. And I have to, for some unknown reason, I have to unlock and make it public to everybody on Facebook. So there you go. And YouTube, welcome. So if you've just joined me, my name is Stefania Pulio from the Gentleman's Square, and I am a men's love and relationship consultant and a certified hypnotherapist. That's right. And I am going to be talking about trust and how to rebuild trust after betrayal. Now, I know this can be sometimes a little tricky, and some people can't rebuild trust. Some people find it really difficult, and it depends on what you've been through. And it's not to say that you have to stay in a relationship if there's no trust, right? But first of all, trust. Trust is probably the most essential component of a healthy relationship. Apart from all the other components, I still feel that trust is a real big, major. And then it sort of, it comes under, I guess, good communication, being open, honest, having integrity. But having trust, having a solid foundation of trust between two people, it's far easier and it takes a lot less time to actually lose trust than to actually build up trust in a relationship. That's right. Hello, Pierre. Thanks for joining us today. Good to see you. But rebuilding trust takes, particularly after an event, something like infidelity, trust of, and I'm going to go through all the different types of trusting, but, rebuilding trust takes time, it takes patience, it takes work. And just as it does to, build that trust, but it can only be done if both parties, both people in the relationship are motivated to do it. Okay. And I'm sure you've heard the saying that goes, it takes years to build trust. It takes years to build, but seconds to break and forever to repair. So when we think about the circumstances that could lead us to losing trust in our partner, there could be, infidelity is usually the main thing that one of the main things that comes right to mind. And maybe some of you out there have actually experienced infidelity. I know I have. I know I have been in a relationship where the trust was broken through infidelity. And did I stay in the relationship? No, I chose not to. Now, that's not to say that it's not for everybody, okay? Because, for some people, you can rebuild it. And that's what I'm going to go through today on, ways of rebuilding. And you might say, well, Stefania, you didn't do it. That's right. But I had my reasons. But obviously, the major part of my relationship obviously wasn't strong enough to hang on to that relationship. So that's my story in why I didn't go through with it. But trust issues may not only be all about infidelity. It might be about, breaking trust in a relationship maybe through manipulating situations, where your partner manipulates, the situation to suit that person. It may be a pattern of not sharing our true feelings or openly being open with our partners. Sometimes it may be not being able to be dependable with your partner in time of need, or it may be a pattern of going back on our word and breaking promises, which, is all about also integrity. Or for some, it may be just holding back on information. So let's explore, what is trust? What is trust? Well, before looking at ways to rebuild trust, it's important to understand what trust is exactly. What do we define as trust? Trust refers to a person's confident belief that another's motivations are kind towards them, and that the other person will therefore be responsive to their needs. Trust has also been viewed as a personality trait characterizing people's tendency to trust or distrust others in general. So, trust, I believe, is a choice. We either trust or we don't. We either trust or we distrust, right? We can't make someone trust us. Or we, like if you're having these trust issues in a relationship, you certainly got to remember that we can't make someone trust us. They have to decide whether it's safe to trust us, just like it's up to us whether it's safe enough to trust that other person. But some of the signs of trust in a romantic relationship, right? I just want to mention a few of those, just so we know a little bit about, a little bit of the red flags. There's got to be mutual respect for each other. I think that's a given. That shows how we communicate and interact with each other. So obviously, we can be communicating, but how are we communicating with each other? I think that's important. Consideration for each other's needs and being able to be dependable and supportive. Empathy for each other's feelings and concerns and fears and insecurities. We all suffer from them. It doesn't matter how strong we are, we all have these, feelings and fears and insecurities. The commitment towards the relationship and its future. How committed are you? How much are you putting into it that the other person is actually trusting you with that? Feeling emotionally safe, trusting that your partner will respect your physical and emotional boundaries. Now, we spoke about boundaries in the last video that I did last week, but trusting that is also so important. Setting them, but trusting that our partner's going to follow through with them. And the feeling of, being safe and to share things with your partner, trusting your partner with your feelings, trusting them with intimate secrets you may have, feeling safe and vulnerable with your partner is so important when it comes to trust. And, trusting that your vulnerability won't be exploited. So there's a lot of things that, come under the word trust, trusting in our relationship. But trust in a relationship doesn't mean, it doesn't mean we have to share every single thing, every single experience, the way you feel or think with our partner. I think, it's normal and healthy to have personal thoughts. As at the end, you are an individual person. You come together with someone else to share a life, to share experiences, but it doesn't mean you have to share everything of your thoughts, okay? So feelings and experience that we keep to ourselves, it doesn't mean that, trust doesn't also mean that we have to give, our partner full access to our bank accounts, for example, or personal computers or cell phones or social media. Now, if we feel we have to do that, it's because maybe the other person really in your relationship, your significant other, doesn't trust you. So the presence of trust in a relationship usually means we don't need to check up on our partner or have our partner check up on us. Okay. We have faith. We have what is called faith in them and feel able to talk about any concerns we may have. And I think, if we don't have that trust, maybe there may need to be a conversation around that, because you're obviously got a problem with it. And if you can trust your partner with your feelings, you can obviously trust them with having this conversation and telling them, you know, and maybe even sharing of an experience of the past that you've had. So rebuilding trust after you've been betrayed, is it possible? Can it be done? Right? Rebuilding trust when it's been broken is not dependent only on who has broken the trust. Okay, let me repeat that again. Rebuilding trust when it's been broken is not dependable on only the person who has broken the trust or on how many times they can prove that they are honest. Okay, it also depends on the person who has decided not to trust anymore. All right. So if that person hasn't, if you've decided you don't want to trust anymore, or your partner's decided you don't want to trust anymore, it takes two to tango, right? So though they may be totally justified in their decision not to trust. So just say, for example, your partner doesn't want to trust you anymore, or you decide not to trust. As long as they choose not to, or you choose not to, the relationship has no hope of survival and should be ended. So you shouldn't be in a relationship where you don't trust and you have no intention of trusting, and you are not prepared to work on yourself to gain that trust as well. Okay, because you're only heading for a disaster. Okay, so trust is something that, it's, as I said before, it's a decision. And if you decide not to, then there's definitely no hope for the future. So when we have someone break our trust, okay, what happens? It leaves us feeling hurt. It leaves us feeling shocked. It leaves us feeling physically sick. And I know I have, as I said earlier, experienced that. And one of my, betrayals was definitely infidelity in the relationship. And it was funny because I really had that feeling that was happening. Isn't it crazy? We usually do. We usually have that hunch that our significant other is cheating, but we decide. We decide. What do we decide? We decide what we don't want to know. We decide that it's not really happening. We decide that it's going to go away, but it doesn't. Particularly if that feeling is really, really strong. And that's exactly what happened to me, to the point that I actually had to catch him out in the act. That's how bad it was. And when it happened, it was actually in Italy. I was living in Italy at the time. And what happened was, it was a period where I was coming to visit in Australia and he hadn't come. And, when the changes happen, when, the phone conversations are either shorter, they're not being answered, there's a change in pattern. And obviously you feel it energetically as well. And when I came back, when I returned back to Italy, I still felt that there was a change in his behavior, the way he was, holding his phone, his mobile phone all the time, secretly answering his phone or not answering it when it was ringing in front of me. So this one particular day, I I had rung him and he wasn't answering his phone. So I went to his apartment and he was on the 4th level. And of course, in an apartment block, you have to ring the doorbell, right? Or to actually get in the access of the main building, like get the door opens in the main building to then go up to his apartment. And lo and behold, that day, I went to the apartment block and I noticed that his light was on. I could see it from downstairs. And I was calling him and he wasn't answering. So what I did was I went to the door hoping that someone would either come out of the building and I could go up. And the door was actually open. It wasn't actually jammed closed. So I went up, and in this building, we didn't even have an elevator in that building. It was staircase. So I walked up 4 flights of stairs. And when I got there, I could hear giggling. I could hear all the things that I was hoping not to hear. And I rang the doorbell, right? I decided that I was going to ring the doorbell. Even though I knew what was going to happen, I decided to do that. So as I rang the doorbell, the noise stopped, the conversations, the giggling stopped, and he answered. He didn't actually open the door. He said, "Who is it?" in Italian. "Chi è?" And I said, "It's me. It's me. I've come to see you because you haven't been answering your phone, and I'm worried that you were sick." I kind of put on my actress sort of facade on because I thought, well, what am I going to say? You're in there. I know you're in there with somebody. And he goes, "What are you doing here?" So then as he said that, I could hear like footsteps and like heels, and I knew she was in there. And the crazy part was I still wanted to see. So to cut the long story short, he opened the door and I, pretended said, "What's wrong? You're not looking well," and reached out to caress him and then opened the door to see where she was because I was so angry that she was in there. Isn't that crazy? We think about the other person more than we think about, our partner who's cheating on us. And I remember what I did was his apartment was very small, little hallway. I looked in the kitchen, no one was there. And then at the end, there was his bedroom. It was only a 1-bedroom apartment. And as I went into his bedroom and noticed that the bed was all over the place and he was stark naked, by the way, with a towel around him. He says, "What are you doing here?" And I noticed on the veranda, now in Italy, they have these, what they call serrande, these really thick blinds that, because it gets very hot there, to shut the summer out, the heat and the sun. So I went to open this blind that was electric, actually. It wasn't by hand, it was electric. And he grabbed me and flung me on the bed. And it was only then that I really realized, what am I doing here? Like, why am I fighting for someone that doesn't want to be with me, is choosing to be with someone else? And that was horrific. It was horrific because I didn't see her by her face, but I saw her feet on the veranda because where the shutter was, she obviously couldn't shut the shutter because she was on the outside of the veranda. She'd obviously, they had enough time to collect their clothes. The bed was all over the place, but it was horrible. It was heartbreaking. And I guess it was there that I realized that, what am I fighting for? So this feeling of heartbreak, this feeling of, that burning anger and sadness and overwhelm never leaves you. And if you actually have experienced that, where you've seen your other half either in bed with someone else or, something similar to that, it can be really, you know, sickening. It can make us feel and leave us jaded for life if we don't if we don't decide to, release it, let it go, whatever that looks like for each and every one of us. Okay. So when this has happened in a relationship, it definitely shakes the foundation of our relationship. It really, it's like an earthquake. Um, where what happens is it leaves us with uncertainty, it leaves us more vulnerable, and you keep questioning, what am I doing in this relationship? Why am I still hanging on to this person in my life? So the question is, how do we continue the relationship? Well, first of all, if we decide that that's what we want to do, we want to continue with the relationship and, you know, try and work at it because you've been together for so long. It was something that just happened, and I always say too, it takes two to tango, right? So the fact that your partner has actually gone um, and had an affair or has been um, unfaithful with someone else, what is it in us that person had to do that? Now sometimes it's not about us, right? It's about them, obviously, but what is it that they weren't getting in the relationship? But that's for another video. Okay, so what are the steps that we can actually take to continue? All right, so I've got about 4 or 5 steps that we can do to actually make the relationship work. First of all, respect is essential. If we've been hurt, mistreated, and disrespected, we have reason to hold on to resentment. But if we want to rebuild that trust, it's important that both parties treat each other with respect and in the way that we speak to each other, in the way that you communicate. All right. So healthy, number 2, in that, and number 2 is the importance of communication, right? And it may be painful. I know it was for me because I kind of didn't let go straight away, but it was so painful that I opted the other. But for some people, it can be painful, it can be uncomfortable, and it can be also confronting. The partner that is betrayed often experiences anxiety as well, okay, about talking about the betrayal. And it's obviously, because they feel guilty, they feel shame, they feel responsible for their partner's hurt. But it's also important, that that person doesn't feel always judged, under attack, because that is not a way of communicating. So being constructive and having trust, rebuilding trust, definitely, communication is one of the keys, okay, to have. So without communication, you can't build trust. You got to have, without no consideration or empathy, no understanding, no reassurance, there's not going to be any healing in the relationship. So, number 3, being vulnerable gradually. Okay, emotional vulnerability is important. Building trust takes willingness to opening up, because there is a potential risk of being hurt again. What do they say? Once bitten, twice shy. So there is a risk in, being hurt again. Number 4, forgiveness. Now, this is a difficult one because forgiveness does not imply restored trust. Okay. Forgiven, but not forgotten. Okay. Forgiveness is a conscious and deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance towards another person who has harmed you or who you felt, betrayed. Regardless of whether they actually deserve your forgiveness is essential for the continuation of the relationship, and B, self-forgiveness for yourself. Okay, so rebuilding trust requires forgiveness. And remember that forgiving your partner isn't saying that what you did was okay. All right. But at the same time, you can't dwell on the past. Okay. You have to avoid dwelling on the past. It's only going to be normal that it's going to be on your mind. It's only normal that it's going to ruminate on the betrayal every time you think about it. So it's important that we acknowledge these thoughts, these feelings, and communicate them to our partner. And, rather than holding them down, it's important to acknowledge them and that they are a normal reaction to what has happened and that we can fear the past. Now, we will have to learn to focus on the present. Okay, so if we're not focusing on the past and dwelling on the past, it's what's happening now in the present moment. And that reminding ourselves that we've made that conscious decision to trust our partner based on what is happening in the moment. Okay, so I think that is really important. But another important aspect, and this is when you have to evaluate and say, is it worth it? Is it worth rebuilding trust in my relationship? Rebuilding trust isn't an easy task, let me tell you. It's normal to question if it's even worth it before you even decide to communicate to working on your relationship. Because if our partner makes a mistake or two over the course of a long relationship and owns up to it, working on trust issues may be the right move. Okay. You know your partner, you know what you've been through. Okay. I can't feel that for anyone else. I can only know for myself. We can only know for ourselves. But as long as there's still love and commitment between two people, working on trust issues will only make your relationship stronger. That's right. Even though, most people would probably argue what I'm saying. If there is still love and commitment between two people, working on your trust issues will only make our relationships stronger. However, if we know that we will never be able to completely trust our partner again, no matter what they do, it's generally best to make this clear right away so that both of you can actually move on forward into your lives separately. Okay, rather than tormenting each other, rather than going through all the pain and the hurt. Now, sometimes the signs that may indicate that it's better to end a relationship are things like an insincere apology, dismissing your feelings about betrayal. Your partner may be still gaslighting you or reversing the blame, not taking responsibility of their actions. The behavior doesn't match up with their words. So what they say and what they do are two total different things. And obviously, continued deceit or manipulation. They are the clear signs that it's time to end your relationship. So maybe it's time to get some help between the two of you, or you may want to go separately. But couples therapy can be a great source when dealing with trust issues, especially those involving infidelity. A therapist can offer, unbiased views on your relationship and the betrayal and the impacts of the betrayal. It's a great way to release any trauma that we may be carrying from our past. There may be some childhood healing that needs to be done. Now, I know I've worked with clients where this has happened. there has been trust broken. There has been a betrayal of trust in a relationship. And what we must understand is we need to heal as a person to then be able to move forward into either the relationship you choose to stay in or the relationship you choose to, step into in the future. Because unless we heal those emotions, unless we heal that trapped trauma, which not only sits in our subconscious mind, but also sits in our cellular memory. Once that is, healed and you are restored and healed from that, then again, as I said before, you're able to move on and have those healthy relationships. So, just to recap, is it possible to rebuild a relationship after a breach of trust? Whether it's worth it depends on your relationship needs and whether you feel it's possible to trust your partner again. This is a very personal decision, okay? I'm not here to say you have to have trust, you have to make it work, or you have to leave. It's all very personal to that one particular person, okay? If you decide to try and repair things, be prepared for things to take some time. It's not going to happen overnight, okay? If both sides are committed to the process of rebuilding trust, you might find that both of you can actually come out stronger than before, both as a couple and on your own. So that concludes my session today on can we build trust after betrayal. I hope you've enjoyed this segment. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have any questions, anything you'd like to share or ask any questions, please let us know. Please remember to subscribe to my channel and hit those hit the notification bell. You may want to share with your friends, like this video, and of course, follow me on the Gentleman Square. And I will catch you in my next video. Until then, as always, I send you love and I send you passion. Bye for now.